is a really lucky thing. I think we need all the joy we can get. Simchat Torah means joy in Torah. And we really just express our gratitude for having this gift of wisdom that helps guide us and remind us what our job is here in this life, which is essentially what it boils down to, is to love each other and to be connected to each other and to care for each other and to care for our community and our world. So aren't we lucky to be part of a community that is all about all of those things? So we're going to celebrate that tonight. And of course, we're celebrating finishing the Torah reading cycle and beginning again. That reminds us we live as part of these really eternal cycles. These have gone on for millennia. Our people have read this sacred story over and over each time, finding more meaning in it. And tonight we're going to hear from some of our sixth graders who are getting ready to prepare for their bar and bat mitzvah, and they are finding their own meaning in their Torah portion. So a lot to celebrate. And we have, as I mentioned earlier, but for those who've just joined us, we also have a bar mitzvah to celebrate. So mazel tov to the Dykman family for tomorrow. We're going to begin this evening by just singing about how great it is to be together. Even in this virtual sanctuary, we make it special, we make it holy by caring about each other, by caring about our tradition, by caring about Torah and how we live our lives. So we wish we could be in the same space. We so wish that. I miss dancing with the Torah with all of you out on Beacon Street. But we will work for the day when we can do that again. In the meantime, we're going to express our thanks for being together, even in this way, with Hine Matov, which is on page 10 in your Shabbat prayer book. Hine Matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. So we always have the Torah to learn from, and we always have candles to light up the darkness. Every Shabbat, every holy day, we light candles. And tonight, we are going to have the Dykman family lead us in that honor, in honor of Ben's bar mitzvah, Ben becoming bar mitzvah tomorrow morning. Anyone who has brought candles into their Zoom square, please go ahead and light with us. And the blessing is on page 2. And we're going to say Shel Shabbat and Shel Yom Tov.
Oh, no, I didn't. That happened, Doug. Just say the blessings. Hey guys, you ready? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של שבת ושל יום טוב.
Amen. So we get to say Shehechianu. The Dykmans have a lot of reasons to say Shehechianu, and we're saying Shehechianu in honor of the holiday. And I will lead us all in Shehechianu blessing, which is here on your screen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu Thank you to the Dykmans and Mazel Tov. Yasher Koach.
We're very excited to celebrate with you tomorrow, and we're looking forward to Simchat Torah in the morning with your family in the sanctuary. Today has been filled with joyous occasions, and earlier this afternoon, I had the opportunity to gather with some special kindergartners and first graders who are with us this year, and to celebrate consecration with them as we welcome them to the next stage of their educational journey. So as we sing Shalom Aleichem tonight, we're going to welcome these little angels into our community, and I'm going to share some photos from that wonderful event this afternoon.
And we're on page 24 in your prayer book if you're following along at home in the book or in the digital form of the book. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitkhem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're going to welcome the Shabbat bride, the Shabbat queen, the beloved, beautiful time we are so privileged to enter into each week.
Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kavla, pnei Shabbat kavla. Lecha dodi, likrat kavla, pnei Shabbat kavla. La 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kavla, pnei Shabbat kavla. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat kabbalah. Verse 1. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Ishmi'anu el ha'michad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shemo tiferet v'liti la 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat kabbalah. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat kabbalah. Verse 2. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor haveracha, mirosh mikedem nesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshava la 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat kabbalah. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat kabbalah. Verse 5. Hitoreri, ki va'orech u'mihori, uri shir daveri, kivod Adonai aleich nikla la 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 la. Sing it out, y'all. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, נקבלה. בואי ושלום, עטרת מעלה, גם בשמחה ובזולה, תוך אמוני הסגולה, בואי כלה, בואי כלה. יא לה 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 לה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. One more time. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
Thank you, Josh. We turn to page 28 for the Baruch Hu. And I always think of the Baruch Hu as the "Are you ready?" Moment. Are you ready to really pray? And tonight it feels very bittersweet, because on the one hand, tonight is maybe the most joyous night of the year. It's the end of Sukkot. It's Shabbat. It's the beginning of Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah, the joy of Torah. So there is so much joy. And part of me is asking, am I ready for all that joy that's going to happen in the next 25 hours? And on the other hand, there's a little bit of sadness, because am I ready for these holidays to end? We've had such wonderful holidays in our community, beginning in the month of Elul, and especially on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And tonight is the last night of this high holiday season. And so it's really a bittersweet moment. And so I invite you to lean in tonight to whichever side you're feeling called to, that joyousness of today, or perhaps the sadness of saying goodbye to these holidays. We turn to page 28 for the Baruch Hu, and we rise in body or spirit. So a couple of weeks ago on Yom Kippur, many of you heard me speak about my puppy Ruby and her difficulties with healing. And I am very happy to report that in the last 2 weeks, she has made tremendous progress. And when I say the word heal, she hears me. She looks up at me. She knows I'm speaking to her. And most of the time, she actually follows through. So I'm not ready to say that she actually is obeying or she's doing what I asked, but she hears me. And there is such joy in being heard in that moment of recognition. And so as we turn to the Shema, which can be found on page 34, I invite us to open our ears and to open our hearts and to listen to that voice, to that quiet that we need to hear. Because whatever is on the other end takes such joy in being heard.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher Anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha Ukshartam leot ayatecha behayiletot afod beineinecha Uchtavtam al mezot beitecha uvisharecha leman tiskeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim l'hiot lachem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let's cross the sea, friends, shall we? Page 40, Michamocha. Michamocha ba'elim Adonai. Michamocha neda b'kodesh. Norah tehilo dosefele. Norah tehilo dosefele. Malechotecha ra'u vanecha. Okei aliyam lifnei Moshe. Adonai lo
almost every Friday night when we're together for services and we come to this part of the liturgy when we sing about and pray for a Sukkot Shalom, a canopy of peace, you can probably tell that it's one of my favorite prayers, one of my favorite pieces of the liturgy, because I find that I always have to talk about it. And I like to tell you to really get in touch with that feeling of being embraced and held and sort of encompassed by a canopy of peace. And I know one time I told everybody how much I coveted my friend's canopy bed when I was about 8 years old, because I thought that would be so cool to feel like to sleep under a canopy. But in this blessing, we sing about a sukkah. And as we come to the end of Sukkot, and it's so bittersweet, as Rabbi Schaefer said, we need to take with us that feeling. I hope everyone got to even just spend a moment even in a sukkah, even if you didn't have your own sukkah. But even if you didn't, to take in the spirit of this holiday, the feeling of being, as I said last week, kind of hugged by a structure that is vulnerable. A lot of people's sukkahs fell down in the big windstorm, but it's still meant to remind you that you are held and you are safe in a really important way, no matter how much the winds blow. And most importantly, when we remember that feeling that I hope we've all felt sometime in our life, that feeling of safety and being held, when we remember that feeling, we can give that feeling to other people. In this next blessing, we are going to pray that God spread over us a sukkah, a canopy of peace. We're going to be on page 42. And like I always say, I think that this blessing comes to remind us that we are responsible for weaving a canopy of peace together for everyone in this world to be able to feel safe and held, no matter what is going on, no matter what kind of storms we're experiencing. So with that in our minds and on our hearts, we're going to sing this beautiful line, Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha. It's 3 lines down in the prayer book. And it's a beautiful lullaby melody that I used as a lullaby to put my kids to sleep back in the day. Ufros Aleinu Sukkot, Sukkot Shalomecha, Ufros Aleinu Sukkot, Sukkot Shalomecha. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukkot shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of the people Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. And may that feeling of being sheltered by peace enable us to create a canopy of peace for all who dwell on earth. Kol Yoshvei Tevel, V'nomar, and let us say, Amen. We're going to move now into the Amidah, the standing prayer. I invite you to stand in body or spirit as you are able. And something very important happens when we chant the Amidah tonight. We mark the passing, the changing of the seasons in one very important way. Ever since Pesach, which, as you remember, was very early on in the pandemic. So now, of course, we mark time and seasons also with this overlay of our pandemic time and the time since our world has changed. So Pesach, Passover, was early on. And at that time, we changed to say our summertime blessing, which is we say, Blessed are you, God, who brings the tal, the dew, down. And now we change once again As we are moving in Israel, this is becoming the rainy season, and we are reminded of our dependence on the natural cycles. We have to pray that after this harvest festival of Sukkot, that we'll once again have an abundant harvest with our produce next year. And that, especially if you're in Israel, requires that you pray for rain. So today, this Simchat Torah is when we change to what says in our book is the winter blessing, though we're not quite in winter. Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem. We say God who makes the wind blow and makes the rain fall. What a beautiful and powerful way to mark time and to note the passing of the seasons. So this feels like an important moment. And as we enter into this end of Sukkot, it also becomes the time when praying for rain with Shmini Atzeret, with this holiday, is very important as well, and very important to those who live in Israel. We are on page 46. We'll begin with our prayer that we be able to pray. We'll chant the first two blessings, including that rain and wind blessing together. The first three blessings, and then we'll have some time for some silent reflection before moving into our prayer for peace. Anna na 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 Adonai. Anna na 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 Svatai tiftach. Anna na 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 Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim ve'Konei Hakol, ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot ve'Imahot, u'Mevii Geula לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן.
Technical difficulties.
Please join me at the beginning on page 50, picking up at the beginning of the Givurot prayer. Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, mechaye hakol ata rav le'oshia, mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem, mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, umatir asurim, umkayem emunato, lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, umido melach, melech meimit umchaye, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata l'hachayot hakol, Baruch ata Adonai, mechaye hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah, Baruch ata Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. We'll take a few moments for silent prayer, and we'll join together in a few moments for a prayer for peace.
Shalom bimromav, Uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Turn now to our prayer for healing of body and spirit. Our Misha Berach prayer is found on page 253. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Wi-Fi went down or Zoom crashed, I'm not sure which. So at this time, we call to mind and to heart anyone we know or those we don't know but are thinking of who are in need of healing of body or of spirit. And I invite you to put names into the chat if you are able to do that from where you're watching. We are praying as a community tonight for Judy Mabel, Chaya Etta Bat Pinchas Verivka, Shai Aviad Ben Balfura, Judy Garbowski, Peter Feldman, Fishel Ben Yisrael, Hetty Feldman, Linda Hoffman, Joseph Demoa, Anna McNaught, Jane Reed and Lois Rubin, Monica Alexandris Miller, Joseph Demoa, all those who are suffering from the effects of COVID-19. You can continue to add names and bring them into our virtual sacred space as we sing this healing prayer. Mi sheberach Avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu, Mikor habracha la'avoteinu. Meet those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Now, before we go into our special Simchat Torah service, we're going to have the opportunity to recite Mourner's Kaddish. Those who are observing a yahrzeit or who are in a period of mourning, I invite you to rise. You're able to rise, and if you would like to share the name in the chat, I know that within our community, we have Nathan Spritz remembering his father, Neil. We have James Stark remembering his father, Alan. And if there are others you are remembering this evening and want to let us know in the chat, please do so. Otherwise, feel free just to say their names aloud in your space. And we will be on page 294 for Mourner's Kaddish. And Mildred Stark as well. Yitgadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, ואמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
So tonight we have something very unique that we only get to do once a year in our community, and that is to have a Torah service in the evening. Now, depending on when you grew up and where you grew up, maybe this was more commonplace. I know when I became a bar mitzvah, we had a Torah service every Friday night. And when it was my turn to become a bar mitzvah, I read my Torah and Haftorah on Friday evening. But in our community and in most Reform communities today, it's become much less common to read Torah at night. But this one time every year, we take out 2 Torah scrolls, one that is very close to the very end, and we read the final pages, the final verses of the book of Deuteronomy. And then we close that Torah and we say together, Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek, strength, strength, may we be strengthened. And we return that Torah and we open up the second Torah and we read the first verses of Genesis so that there is no break in the cycle of reading. So tonight we will get a chance to do all of that virtually. And I'm very excited, all the elements that we get to bring together, including from our 6th graders who are going to teach us a little bit about their Torah portions that they will have for their bar and bat mitzvah, and are going to help us to summarize basically the entire Torah. Now, you might think that that's an impossible task to do in just a few minutes, but the great sage Hillel was once asked to summarize the entire Torah while standing on 1 foot, and he was able to do it in 1 sentence. And he said, "What is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow." That is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Now go and learn. So we're going to take a little bit more than 1 sentence to try and summarize the whole Torah. But we hope you enjoyed taking this journey with us. And we are going to begin with our Torah service, which can be found on page 244 in the prayer book if you'd like to follow along.
אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך, מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן. Adonai yivarech at hamo v'shalom, ava rachamim, etiva v'rtzoncha et Zion. Tivne chomot Yerushalayim, tivne chomot Yerushalayim, ivechal avad batachnon, melech el ram v'nisa, Adon Olamim. Take a deep breath, maybe close your eyes and really imagine that you are standing before an open ark and you are welcoming Torah into your midst and really trying to connect with the incredibly ancient yet also always relevant wisdom that is contained within it. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. אתה הורית לדעת כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, אין עוד מלבדו. לעושה נפלאות גדולות לבדו, כי לעולם חסדו. You have been shown that you may know that Adonai alone is your God. There is none else, who alone does great wonders. God's love is eternal. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Just as we did on the high holy days, we remind ourselves and we remind God of God's core attribute of compassion. Adonai, Adonai, Erachum v'chanun, Erech apayim, Rav chesed v'emet, Notzer chesed la'alafim, Nose avon v'fesher, V'chata'ah v'nakem. And now Shema, we recite responsively. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlu l'Adonai iti unerumema shemo yachdav al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim ha'olam, ha'olam omed. Al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim, al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. The world stands on three things: on this wisdom that's been handed down through the generations, on acts of service and prayer, and on acts of loving kindness and compassion.
As we prepare to hear from our sixth graders and to summarize the entire Torah as best we can, I just want to reflect on the words that we'll say at the end of Deuteronomy, chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. This word chazak, which means strength, is repeated 3 times. And the rabbis teach that we say it 3 times because it refers to the past, to the present, and the future. And I think summarizing the Torah at this point is a wonderful way to experience that. On the one hand, we get to look back on the last year and experience all the amazing Torah portions we read. Remember Noah? Oh, I love that story. That was so great. Remember the burning bush? That was incredible. And to walk through everything that we've learned together over the last year. And many of us have had the chance to study these very closely together and to be reminded of those lessons and those insights. And at the same time, it is us here experience this right now. And it's also a preview of the year to come. And especially for these 6th graders and their families, it's a chance to look into the future and to imagine what it'll be like to celebrate together when we get to their Torah portion in 2 years. So as we get a chance to unroll the Torah together and to listen to these summaries, I invite you to experience as best you can all three of those moments, the past, the present, and the future.
Who am I anyway? Where am I going to? How did I get her? And what do I need to know?
Hi, my name is Elio Cohn, and my Torah portion is called Haya Sarah. It is in the book of Genesis, lines 23:1 to 25:18. It is about Sarah dying and Isaac needing a wife to comfort him. Isaac sends Eliezer to find a wife for him. He does this by traveling to Charan and waiting by the well asking for water. Whoever got him the drink of water and gave the camels water passed the test and would become Isaac's wife. Eliezer received water from Rebekah, who went home and married Isaac. I think the main thing for this portion is that when you help one person, you are helping more people than you think. Thank you. This is a picture I drew. This is Rebekah and Eliezer, and there's a camel by the well.
Rebekah has twins, Esau and Jacob. Esau gives Jacob his birthright in exchange for some stew. King Abimelech is led to think that Rebekah and Jacob deceived Isaac's sister and later finds out that she really isn't his wife. Isaac plans to bless Esau, his firstborn. Rebekah and Jacob deceive Isaac so that Jacob can receive his blessing. Esau threatens to kill Jacob, who then flees to Haran.
With all the answers, I just wanna find my letter in the Torah. I know it's somewhere out there, if I could only see. I just wanna find my letter in the Torah, the one that's written just for me. It's not about the goal, it's all about the soul you use in every move you make. It's not the biggest name.
My name's Max, and my Torah portion is Pikudei. It's from the book of Exodus. And one interesting fact about it is during it, Moses actually asked people to stop giving donations.
I just wanna find my letter in the Torah. I know it's somewhere out there, if I could only see. I just wanna find my letter in the Torah, the one.
We are fortunate to get such a great parsha, Emor, from the book of Leviticus. Emor means speak, and we love to speak. Emor is the fifth word in our parsha. Emor gives us an overview of the whole biblical calendar. God instructs Moses to tell the Israelites to observe the following holidays: Shabbat, Passover, Shavuot, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and Sukkot. It also includes a mentioning of sacrifices for the priests. Something that we find interesting regarding sacrifice is that the animals that people think are unworthy and are normally animals to be sacrificed. They thought that being unworthy was when the animal has some kind of defect or malformity. Each and every one of us has imperfections, and that's what makes us unique.
Hi, my name is Liam. My Torah portion is Bihar from the book of Leviticus, and it is about taking a break and giving back, and yeah.
What am I supposed to do with my life? Can I start living if I don't know which way to go? I heard somebody say in the quiet of the night.
My name is Aiden. My Torah portion is Naso, and the book is Numbers. And what I'm going to say is
that the priestly blessing is important because it tells you that God will protect you and make sure there is peace. And then this is my picture.
Just for me. So many words, so many pages. I keep finding more every time I look. Sometimes I need.
My name is Mira, and my Torah portion is called Red. My Torah portion is about Moses telling the Jews about the rules of Judaism.
My Torah portion, Kitavot, is from the book of Deuteronomy. It is in this parasha, the Israelites are arriving in Israel and they have to say thank you to God. In this portion, we hear the consequences that will happen to us if we do not follow the commandments and the good things that will happen to us if we do follow the commandments. I'm Zach, and this is my portion picture.
Hi, I'm Mike.
Hi, I'm Lily.
Our Torah portion is Ha-Azinu in Deuteronomy, and I think our Torah portion is about forgiveness. It shows us when instead of Moses being angry or sad toward Adonai because he was about to die, he was relieved and joyful. This picture is of the Jews Moses telling the Jews about all the bad things they have done to God and all the good things God has done to them.
My summary of this one is Moses before his death, he tells the Israelites a poem, that speaks to them about what God said to them, how like you should forgive God and how he's great and is never false. Moses, while speaking this, is not mad even though he knows he's gonna die. He's glad, he's calm and knows and is fine about how he knows he's gonna die.
Well, Yasher Koach, way to go. That was awesome. Sixth graders, I could not wipe the smile off my face. That was so great. I was worried that it might not be as joyous since we can't dance on Beacon Street with the Torah tonight, but that gave me so much joy. And I'm really excited to work with all of you as you prepare more in earnest for your B'nai Mitzvah. So way to go. And thank you to everyone who had a hand in putting that video together. That was beautiful. So we have a tradition, as Rabbi Schaefer explained. Of course, we chant the final verses of the Torah and then we chant the first verses of the Torah, but we don't even take a small break. We don't say, you know what, let's just take a week off. No, we just keep right on going. And that's symbolized tonight and this Shabbat. You'll hear Deuteronomy and then beginning of Genesis, both tonight and tomorrow. And there's a tradition of Kalat Torah, a bride of Torah, or a Chatan Torah that reads the final verses of the Torah, and then a Chatan Bereshit, the groom of Genesis, who will read the opening verses of Genesis. So I get to be Kalat Torah, and I will chant the book of Deuteronomy, the final verses, and Rabbi Schaefer will be the Chatan Bereshit, the groom of Genesis, reading the opening verses of Genesis. And since it's traditional to make sure that everyone in the community has the honor of an aliyah on Simchat Torah, we want to include everybody. We want to, and I think Rabbi Schaefer explained this, but if not, we're going to split up alphabetically. So if your last name is between A and L, then you will do this first aliyah blessing and the rest of us will respond. And likewise, M through Z, you will do the next aliyah blessing and the rest of us will respond. So for the first aliyah, and I think in the interest of the technical issues with Zoom and everyone chanting together, we'll keep everyone muted, but I will chant on everyone's behalf. But I'm going to trust that you are at home
saying the Aliyah blessing along. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. Here we are in Deuteronomy chapter 34. I'm starting from verse 7. Amen. Moshe ben mea v'esrim shana b'moto lo kahataino velo naslecho vayivku v'nei Yisrael et Moshe be'arvot Moav 30 yom. ויתמו ימי וכי אבל משה ויהושע בן נון מלא רוח חוכמה כי סמך משה את ידיו עליו וישמעו אליו בני ישראל ויעשו כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה ולא קם נביא עוד בישראל כמשה אשר ידעו אדוני פנים אל פנים. לכל האותות והמופתים אשר שלחו אדוני לעשות בארץ מצרים לפרעה ולכל עבדיו ולכל ארצו ולכל היד החזקה ולכל המורה הגדול אשר עשה משה לעיני כל ישראל. And I will read now the English of what I just read, and then we'll say our concluding blessing. Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eyes were undimmed and his vigor unabated. And the Israelites bewailed Moses in the steppes of Moab for 30 days. The period of wailing and mourning for Moses came to an end. Now Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom, because Moses had laid his hands upon him, and the Israelites heeded him, doing as the Lord had commanded Moses. Never again did there arise in Israel a prophet like Moses, whom the Lord singled out face to face, for the various signs and portents that the Lord sent him to display in the land of Egypt against Pharaoh and all his courtiers and his whole country, and for all the great might and awesome power that Moses displayed before all Israel. Now we say our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. And over we go right away to the book of Genesis. So now
everybody can join me in reciting the words we say at the end of every book of Torah. I'll say them first, and then Rabbi Berkman will lead everybody in responding. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek.
Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek.
And it's my pleasure tonight to lead the Aliyah from the book of Genesis. And if your last name is from M to Z, I hope you will join me in chanting this as soon as I can resolve my technical difficulties. There we go. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amin V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
We are in the beginning, Genesis 1, the first 2 days. We'll have a chance to read together. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz v'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu v'choshech al pnei tehom v'ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim vayomer Elohim yehi or vayehi or vayar Elohim et haor ki tov vayavdel Elohim ben haor uven hachoshech vayikra Elohim laor yom v'lachoshech kara laila vayehi vayivoker yom echad vayomer Elohim ihi rakia betoch hamayim vayehi mavdil ben mayim lamayim Vayas Elohim et harakia vayavdel ben hamayim asher mitachat larakia uven hamayim asher me'al larakia vayechichen vayikra Elohim larakia shamayim Vayhi erev, vayhi boker, yom sheni. In the beginning, God began to create heaven and earth, the earth being unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep, and a wind from God sweeping over the water. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, a first day. God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the water, that it may separate water from water." God made the expanse, and it separated the water which was below the expanse from the water which was above the expanse, and it was so. God called the expanse sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, a second day. Please join me in the blessing after the Torah reading. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Azoy filider berger Maral mir deresen Oi nur ein Lied ist mir geblieben Und ich kann ihn nicht vergessen Oh, ich kann ihn nicht vergessen, kann ihn nicht vergessen Tirl, 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 tirl Ich spiel der Pass doch auf sein Fleuer Wisst ihr das Lied von Basarabie? Von dem Pastoren für sein Trauer. Oh, wie von dem Pastoren für sein Trauer, von dem Pastoren für sein Trauer. Wenn einmal ein Pastor, eine kleine a Kind gewesen zwischen Kinder. Euer der gepostet bei seinen Toten, singen wir schon.
Friends, I know how filled with longing we are looking at those photos of Simchat Torah celebrations that have passed. I think that more than ever, we can relate to that sentiment of Bashana Haba'a B'Yerushalayim that we say at the end of Yom Kippur, that we say on Passover next year in Jerusalem. Maybe we never connected to that before. Maybe we said, oh, we don't want to go to Jerusalem. Maybe we didn't understand what that meant. Really, it's getting us in touch with that longing to be together in a place. And boy, do we feel it now. So I just want to name that. I think that that probably brought some tears to some of our eyes and made our hearts hurt a little bit. And I want to say to you, I assure you, we are going to dance again with our Torahs on Beacon Street. And we're going to work for that day. In the meantime, I'm so proud of all of you here for showing up and being together and adapting to such a difficult situation and committing the community. So thank you. We are going to sing a little bit together, and then we're going to actually have a little bit of time to dance as best we can, to dance even in our Zoom screens, even if we feel really silly and awkward. We're going to try to get in touch with that joy, even in the midst of our longing. And after all, that is what our tradition is all about. Those two things are always mixed together, and we feel it so profoundly in Simchat Torah 5781, 2020. So there's a line that we say that begins our hakafot, our processions, and our dancing with the Torah. Ana Adonai Hoshiana. It says, God, please save us. And you're going to maybe remember this from past celebrations, and then it leads us into singing. We're going to sing that, and then we're going to sing a line that comes from the book of Deuteronomy, and it's really the only Sukkot song that I know of. It's really just a line of Torah that says, "V'samachta b'chagecha v'hayita ach sameach." All it says is, be happy, be really happy. No, I mean it, be really, really happy. So it's, not to put too fine a point on it, we're supposed to be happy on Simchat Torah. So first, we say, please God, deliver us, right? We recognize how vulnerable we are and that we are dependent on forces beyond our control, and that we also have to use our power and do what we can to control what happens to us in our world. Ana Adonai Hoshiana, Ana Adonai Hatzlichana, Anenu, Anenu, Le'yom Korenu, Anenu, Anenu, Le'yom Korenu, Anenu, Anenu, Le'yom Korenu, Anenu, Anenu, Yom Korenu. V'samachta v'chagecha v'hayita ach sameach. V'samachta v'chagecha v'hayita ach sameach. V'samachta v'chagecha v'hayita ach sameach. ושמחת בחגיך והיית שמח. ושמחת בחגיך שמחת בחגך והיית אך שמח. Now, everyone, not to worry. We're going to turn off the live stream. So you do not need to dance awkwardly in your Zoom square.